The Department of Energy, as of this year, is putting money back into biopower as a research scope. So in addition to their liquid fuels, they're looking at biopower. We've I guess it's safe to say we're working with EPRI as an interagency, inter-power company liaison and looking at those issues. So we're negotiating the production of large amounts of biomass that can go into these plants. The real issue that we face is some of these technologies that they would like to investigate. Power plants require hundreds of tons of material just to do test burns. And torrefaction, for example, which is a good candidate for that, there are no facilities that can produce hundreds of tons of that material very effectively right now. We have a process unit that can do about 50 to 70 tons an hour, or excuse me, pounds an hour. And so you can imagine what it would take to produce that. So catching the technology from the laboratory up at scale to do testing with an industry that's mature is difficult. But we're doing our best we can matching up the laboratory testing with the scale as it allows us to do.
Anybody want to add?
Well, I do. I guess that's one of the perks of being the moderator. There is a facility in Utah. University of Utah has a technology department, and they have a facility that has all sorts of different machines that will, in small scale, mimic about any type of coal power facility there is. And there is right now, a partnership going on with the Utah Biomass Resources Group with Lance Lindblom, who's providing the feedstock. Actually, INL is helping do some of the processing into various types of feedstocks, such as pellets and chips and even torrefied wood. And then in conjunction with Utah State and the University of Utah, we are going to be this winter testing those feedstocks in various systems at the University of Utah with the ultimate idea of then identifying one or two feedstocks that have real potential. And then we're working with PacifiCorp at the carbon power plant and plan next spring to run tests with that feedstock at probably 5 to 10% mixed with coal and burn and test. So University of Utah has that facility. Next question. Yes, Gareth.
Okay, this is just to clarify, for the gentleman that asked that last question, were you referring to burning slash in existing coal power plants or standalone biomass power plants?
Here's our problem. We have a lot of small communities that are surrounded by natural resources. And is there a way or somebody working on being able to take those natural resources, bring them to town, and create electricity out of them and put it on the wire, rather than doing like what we are now doing, trucking this stuff for a couple hundred miles to a mill? It seems like that trucking system is eating up all the product. And what we need to do is go back to our old GIPO system, which amounted to a whole bunch of little operators working their tails off to make a living. And I'm really trying to get back to that again, to where we have a lot of little operators bringing material into, let's say Salmon, Idaho, or someplace, Darby, Montana, which I'm from, and making a small cogen plant. There must be a break-even point where that could be feasible in putting this energy, which is the bottom line, putting it on the wire and taking it to the customer, primarily the new and up-and-coming electric car customer. This person who owns these electric cars should be able to pay a premium for that particular type of energy. Hopefully it'd be a lot less than what we're paying the oil companies right now. Does that make sense?
So we're talking about community energy systems. Okay, we're going to allow the panel to address that, and then if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to talk about that, we'll give them some mic time. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I'll start. They say never make predictions if you're an economist, but if you do make them many times, one of those times you're bound to be right. The cogen plant would work really well if it's community-centered and the community has buy-in and they're all willing to have their houses heated by distributing that energy that would be produced through the hot water system to take care of, their heating needs and all of those kind of things from a central system. They use a lot of those in Europe. They seem to work, so a lot of these things just depend upon the vision to the community and what they're willing to invest in their community. And then they can sit down and figure out how they're going to make it work. I think there are technologies that are there. There are new improvements in piping and plumbing and all of those kinds of things that would make that heat distribution possible. The energy thing, I think if you got some contracts, with some of those mandated states to fill needs with other small communities, that might work. I think it's a matter of being creative and looking for ways to make things work. We used to have a nation of putterers, and they would work on these problems. And I met a guy in western Massachusetts once who ran his 1952 Chevy pickup with a gasifier in the back. So there used to be all these kinds of people who did that. If you have a community that has those kind of risk takers, I think your program has some possibilities. But if they're a status quo kind of community, you're not going to get anywhere. So it kind of depends on what your community is willing to invest in as a community, not just as individuals.
So, and I agree, I think, with what Dr. Miller's saying, and I would only advise one thing, and that is we haven't, I think technically we're there. I don't think there's anything that's technically stopping us from doing what you just said or any number of iterations of that. I think we're still faced with some economic issues, and what we've got is currently cheap natural gas, we got cheap coal, and we have infrastructure already in place, right, to handle both of those. And so what do we have to do? So I think we agree that we're at least in this room and probably beyond this room, very enthusiastic about the green opportunities that are out there, and I wouldn't fault any of us for that, other than the reality is that we probably are going to be paying a premium if we want to go that route, and we have to get beyond that economic hump for most people to jump on that bandwagon and make it happen. I was at a conference down in Mississippi, and a college kid came to the conference, rolled up in his Volkswagen. What vintage was it? It was a Rabbit, I guess. And in the back, he had gone to Home Depot and bought $500 worth of hardware and had a McDonald's or pick your favorite fast food joint that was pumping out grease. And he was running his Volkswagen diesel on grease, and he'd come up with a way where he runs 5 miles. He had a counter-current flow so he could liquefy his material as it came from the heat from the engine and run it through, and all you had to do is make sure he ran 5 miles on regular diesel to start and 5 miles at the end to stop the valve, and he was running on grease. It was great. He said he was probably 10 cents a gallon. The problem, again, with that model is what happens when the whole community changes their cars over and you don't have any more of your free waste grease. It's going to become somebody's going to sell it, and they're going to sell it for a premium, probably the same price as your diesel. So eventually cost catches up to you. And so I don't often think it's technology that's the barrier, but it's making the technology efficient enough and the infrastructure there to make it happen. And I think that's what most of us are trying to research, is the most efficient way to get there, because we realize what our barriers are. That's our fossil fuels. We've got to get below that price break. Either it goes high enough or we make our cost low enough, but somewhere we meet in the middle and it becomes, sensible.
Jared, Dusty, either one of you? Okay, so I am going to ask Aaron Wilkerson with the BLM to talk about Tickaboo.
Okay, I'll give that a try. Did we have one of the representatives from Tickaboo?
No, I don't see him.
No, he's not here.
Well, Mark is here, but he's not here.
Okay. Mark would probably be the best person to talk about that, but I can at least mention
We want the executive summary.
the most recent meeting we had down in Hanksville was focused on looking at the opportunity for the community of Tickaboo, which is located down just north of Bullfrog Marina, near Lake Powell, to convert their diesel generators to biomass energy, particularly gasification. From what we understand, the energy price is at a premium down there because they do run off of diesel generators. And
33 cents a kilowatt hour. Ouch.
Right, and they've looked at opportunities for bringing in transmission lines, which are very cost, prohibitive, as opposed to some opportunities for biomass utilization. So we met down in Hanksville and had a meeting with the local managers and BLM and Forest Service and the folks proposing this, and started talking about what available feedstocks might be out there and what quantifiable or long-term, large-scale projects might be available to supply biomass to this facility. And currently we're in the process of working with the Utah Biomass Group and others to kind of really get a hone in on a good idea of what might be foreseeable, into the foreseeable future, 10, 20 years, sustainable for that facility.
So that is a possible example. But they are having to get underneath 33 cents a kilowatt hour, and based on their business plan, they feel like they can haul up to 150 miles in order to, and then they're still about 22 cents kilowatt hour. What are we paying? 7 to 10 or something like that? So, it's still expensive. Yes, anything to add to the discussion?
I was going to say, that it's a combined heat and power facility that's going to go in Colorado, and the way that they're going to make it work is it's just a 10 megawatt facility, so it's small, and it's a cooperative that services Carbondale and Aspen. So the end users want renewable energy and they're willing to pay more for it. Then they also are in the middle of forested lands with huge forest health problems. And so they have figured out that for the stewardship contract, it's only about 1,000 acres a year that this facility needs. And
10 megawatt?
well, they're also going to get construction waste, but for the forest side of it, it's just 1,000 acres a year. And because they're fuels and forest restoration projects, they're all subsidized by the federal government. And so that's the way they're making it work. But they're only making it work because there's the federal subsidy to go out and get the material. And I think it's like a 75-mile radius, and that the end users are willing to pay a lot more for it.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add something to the conversation? Yeah.
Just one more thing. I think that end user, we have to remember this electric car thing is coming online big time. I don't know if you guys watch television much, but Chevy Volt saying, you don't have to buy any more fuel. You're just running on electricity. And there's 4 or 5 other automobile companies that are saying or thinking the same way. And I think that end user, the electric car owner, is going to be willing to pay that price as long as it's substantially less than the 11 cents a mile right now. I think if we could say you can get your body from here to yon for a nickel a mile, I think he's going to be willing to pay that premium price. And that should get us over that economic hump that we're really stuck on.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, another question. Doug.
Just a follow-up on the community systems, and that is the European model is basically a community system, my understanding is, and it's using heat and then sharing it from a centralized plant. And I already heard that it's a subsidized system, and it's an intriguing one. But my point being is that I met with a pellet manufacturer in Colorado, and he is dealing solely with beetle-damaged pellets, manufacturing pellets from beetle-damaged trees. And he said that he needs to make a profit. He has to have at least 30% of his pellets used by local industry within a 50-mile radius of his facility. So, I'm all about local markets, and it's just that we have to get society to accept and then convert economically to that use of a material for their heating and for their power. Anyway.
Thank you. New question. Okay, John?
Sort of new.
Sort of new?
Actually, it is new, but it kind of ties into that about the society aspect of it. I really like the ideas of the new technologies that are going on. I mean, the biochar, although they are old technologies, 100 years old to do gasification and stuff. But
they're a lot older than that.
Yeah.
At least down in the tropics.
Well, I'm not that old, so I wasn't sure, Scott.
I wasn't there either.
Yeah, you were.
So actually, my point is some of the issues that are coming up right now is people that are trying to do biochar or torrefaction. They're running into issues with zoning issues. Is it ag? Is it forest? And is it industrial? Being able to site these on different kinds of lands has been an issue. Are any of you involved in any group that is trying to work through that, to identify what these, what category it might be in for these kind of advanced processes? Or also, is anyone working with the EPA? Because like you said, people don't know what's coming out the tailpipe. We saw the barbecue, and obviously it puts out smoke like a wigwam. But some of these other ones, there was a gentleman in Halfway with the biochar machine that EPA did not want to give him a variance because they didn't know what the output was. So that kind of unsurety is a challenge. I wonder if you're involved.
Okay, first to the distinguished committee, and then to anyone else in the audience.
The gentleman in Colorado that is operating those barbecues, James Gaspard, said that was a concern of his, and he went to his county zoning, the people that had the air quality permitting, et cetera, and in as much as the alternative was pile and burn, there wasn't a problem, but he's in a rural area. But the point being is, before he started, he collaborated. He went to, whether it was the Department of Environmental Programming or whether it's airshed or watershed, my recommendation is always check and make sure you have a broad base of support within the community to include the environmental groups, whether it's the Center for Biological Diversity, Sierra Club. Look at the NGOs. Ask them in their, like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and others, because they have a wider experience with projects rolling out. It is a question because it's something new, and you have society the way it is. There you have a fear of things new, and especially if they smoke. So that's my advice. Collaborate, and early on, bring them in, let them know what you're going to do. And what the alternative is if you don't. On the other hand, you're right, correct. You sell the benefits at the beginning. If what I'm trying to do is remove fuels in an orderly fashion, this works much better than your house burning down when the forest goes, kind of a thing. You know, in my county, in Box Elder County, we have a lot of stubble fields that after the straw's off, they burn so they can laser level them. And that has caused some consternation among parts of our community. But when they talked about what they were doing that for, then part of that died, and they shortened the framework in the number of days that can happen. And it seems to work out. So always check with the local government, but also not only tell them what you're going to do it, but why you're going to do it and what the benefits are. Because local government exists to help arbitrate between private property owners. You know, you and your neighbor fighting over this or that or the other thing. So the more buy-in you have from your neighbors and selling the benefits and being up front and dealing with the issues is a lot better. You can never play catch-up and win.
Anything else?
Nothing to add.
Anyone want to add to that?
Didn't want to add to that, but I was interested in hearing a little bit more about some of the successes and maybe obstacles from the Moapa tribe's venture that they were working on. That sounded very interesting, but I wonder what the status of that is.
I'd had a previous background working with Native Americans in Arizona and New Mexico in the wood products arena, and I was pleased when my phone rang and they wanted to talk to me about the issue. Right now they are manufacturing several products. They make basic mulches, they make compost, and they make tire-derived fuel. And again, this goes back to my earlier theme of getting a bigger system. They're in cahoots with a tire fluff or a tire recycler in Las Vegas, and they take the tire fluff that's been ground up tires and they mix it with C&D waste and they truck it 400 miles to Barstow, California, and they burn it in a cement kiln, Mitsubishi Cement. Google for Mitsubishi Cement in Lucerne Valley, California, and you can learn about that process. But it's the market found them when the tire recycling company said, "Hey, I could sell you, I could give you some fluff if you have some biomass to go with it." So again, the market discovered itself. God, I almost forgot. When I put that slide up there, I get buzzing in my head, little voices tell me, tell them this and tell them that. And I lost track of that. But they recently got the last USDA Rural Development Grant was for $260,000. Sarah Hadler had asked me, what in the world are you trying to develop a biomass recovery facility that's not going to take pinyon and juniper? And I looked at Sarah and I said, build it and they will come. Now, this last grant is going to go for a tractor, a walking floor trailer, a front end loader, and some scales. And now we've pushed that 50-mile barrier out, and now we're going to have 2 trailers, and we're going to be able to take a trailer to Pioche or Caliente at the lower range of the pinyon and juniper, where they're actually doing thinning, and have the contractor chip directly into the van. And then, with that efficiency of not having the contractor have to remove it, but the Moapans will move it, we will actually start to get pinyon and juniper into the recycled stream. And so that's what we want to do.
Very good. Gloria.
2 points. One, regarding the air quality and the permitting issue, I believe it's Massachusetts that has now developed a set of standards for air quality from pyrolysis units, and I'll try to get that posted on the USBI website. And then secondly, a question for Dusty. Are the Moapa, it's easy. Are the Moapa backhauling, I could see him sweating, are they backhauling with this when they're going out 400 miles to deliver the tire fluff for fuel? I mean, excellent.
There's the Apex
a landfill receives trash from the California area, and then goes out to Wappa and loads up with fuel as it happens.
So the answer is yes.
In a word, yes?